Hi, I'm Melissa Shelton, President for Vitra North America, and you're watching A Student's Perspective.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vanessa with Melissa Shelton, President of Vitra North America, and you're watching A Student's Perspective. Hello, Melissa. Would you like to just give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. So I'm the president of Vitra North America. Vitra is a family-owned Swiss furniture manufacturer, and I've been the president for 3 years. I'm based between New York and Los Angeles, and I actually have a background in interior design, which created my love for the furnishing world. I went to school in Louisiana, which is where I'm from. I'm a New Orleans native. Went to LSU for interior design, which is a really great program, and I'm very proud to be an alum from there. And then I moved to New York about 10 years ago to pursue my dream of being in the capital of the world when it comes to design. Worked for a Danish company, Carl Hansen and Son, for 6 years, and that was where I really learned a lot about international furniture design and importing and distributing it in the US. And then when I left Carl Hansen, I joined the team at Vitra. I first started as the head of sales for their residential division. So I was overseeing all of their what we call home partners. And it was about the distribution of the furniture throughout the North American territory, supporting them, being a brand ambassador, and helping them to serve the clients in the residential settings. And then, like I said, a couple of years ago, I took over the leadership for the full North American team. And now within my role, we do sales and marketing and operations and really just manage the business here so that it can continue to grow and we can continue to build our clientele and community of design.
That's amazing. How would you say your journey from interior design started, and then how did you end up in New York? What led you to make that jump?
Well, I remember when I went to design school, I was 23. So I had finished undergrad and then took some time off and realized that my passion was really in interior design. I wanted to do real estate. This was at a time before, 2008, before the economy dipped and real estate was booming. And I saw that there was a benefit to learning the back end of interior design because it could be really beneficial to flipping properties. So it was kind of a different path than what I'm on now. But when I graduated from interior design school, it was post recession. And I started freelancing, doing a lot of design work for different partners. At one point, I was working for a music festival, designing their site layout and actually producing the install for their VIP tents and installations. So that it just really kind of gave me a taste of different worlds. And what I learned, having lived and grown up at that point only in Louisiana, I was 29 at the time, and I knew that I wanted to see something bigger out in the world. And of course, I don't know anyone who doesn't want to move to New York for a little while. Maybe some people are a little intimidated by it, but if you're a designer, you probably have this pull, this draw to be in either LA or Paris or Milan. And of course, New York is a great place in the States that we can get access to so much design. So it really kind of happened serendipitously. I met a gentleman who was managing the North American operations for a Danish company, but he was doing it from Denmark. And he mentioned to me that he was going to open an office and a team in New York. And I am very opportunistic. And so I wrote him the next day and I said, I'll move to New York and I'll do that for you or with you. And 2 months later, I was packing up all of my things and going to New York with some suitcases and some boxes and a lot of faith.
That's an amazing story. I'm from New York, so I'm always in the city and seeing like the buildings and the architecture. It's always so inspiring. So I do get why you would move there. I love New York very much. So now you worked with a Danish company as well as Vitra, which is from Switzerland. How
Yes.
has European design been like transformed throughout the years that you've seen?
It's a good question. I don't know if I would say that the design changes as much as the approach to the American market. That's really what I focus on and what I help these companies with. Um, in the past, you could purchase a lot of this furniture only if you were visiting these places. And with the implementation of the internet, then it became available that everyone could make purchases or buy or see these items from afar. So what has changed is now a lot of these European companies like Carl Hansen and Son and Vitra have established a home base in North America. And that can sometimes influence the design because there's more interaction with the American community, which then influences like what are the important products that are really working in this market. And it could be different. Like the products that work well in Japan could be different from the products that work well in America. For example, in Japan, people like tables that are lower and furniture that's smaller because spaces are smaller. In America, people like furniture that's larger because spaces are typically larger, maybe outside of New York. But in general, Americans have larger homes. So that feedback is definitely going back to the mother company, and that could be influencing some of the new designs. Another thing that could happen is if we make contact here with a new up and coming or established designer who wants to design for that brand. And it really depends on what type of brand it is. For example, Carl Hansen and Son, when I was there, I introduced them to a designer who's in New York named Brad Ascalon. And Brad Ascalon ended up being one of the designers now for Carl Hansen and Son. He has multiple products that are being designed and currently manufactured. Vitra, on the other hand, has a little bit more of a closed portfolio of design relationships. We call them authors. So Ray and Charles Eames, for example, are some of the original authors at Vitra because that was where Vitra decided to really go into furniture in the 50s. But some of the other designers, vary. They're Italian, they're French. So far, not really so many American designers have contributed toward the Vitra portfolio. But what Vitra does learn from America is how we like furniture and what we are gravitating towards. And of course, there are American designers who are influencing the designers in Europe. So it's become a more global, international design world for sure.
Right. Um, that's a long journey that you have taken from going to all these different companies, from moving to California, from New York to California. Those are big things. Have you traveled to Europe to see these companies like firsthand?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I had the privilege of going to Denmark multiple times during the time that I was with Carl Hansen and Son. And then now with Vitra, we often have our management meetings or different, events in Switzerland and Germany. So just one thing that I'll call out is that Vitra straddles the border between Switzerland and Germany. So our campus, which we call like the heart of our company, it's where we have our museum and where we have a lot of exhibits and also where a lot of the furniture is made. That's actually on the German side of the border in a town called Weil am Rhein. And then our headquarters, which is like our big building of offices of the finance team, of the HR team, and kind of what we call the brain of the company, that's on the Swiss side. So whenever I go to visit Vitra, I'm crossing the border almost twice a day because I'll have meetings on campus and then I'll have meetings at the headquarters in Switzerland. So I've had the privilege of visiting both Germany and Switzerland multiple times. Over the past 4 years, I'd say on average about 4 times a year. And then in addition to that, we also, in the past, have always done the trade show Salone, which happens in Milan. And Salone del Mobile is the big furniture fair that happens every April. So for the last 10 years, I've gone to Milan every April to soak up what's happening in the world of design. It's like the big design week internationally.
That is so amazing. In October, I had the opportunity to go to High Point Market in North Carolina, and I
Yes.
thought that was like the best experience ever. So hearing that you've been to like Germany, Switzerland, Milan, all of these places, and you see design at that level is just like so amazing to hear as a student that these opportunities are out there.
Yeah.
I'm going to Italy next semester. I'm studying abroad.
Oh,
So
that'll be great.
I'm so excited. I'm very nervous, but excited to see and learn about European design and just get to go outside and see what's out there for me. And I'm very
It's a
excited.
different world, and experiencing different ways of life, even just stumbling through how do I get on the metro train? How do I get from point A to B? How do I negotiate paying for a taxi? These are like little everyday things, but the more you experience that in different countries or different communities, it makes you a more well-rounded person because you're seeing something different than you would see if you just stay in your own environment, and you're introduced to just little, especially in the world of industrial design. One thing that I always noticed, and I first noticed when I went to Denmark, because this is when I really started traveling internationally, is like doorknobs are different. Like the way the door closes in a bathroom in a public space is different than the way the door closes in a bathroom in an American public space. So, like something very simple like that will stop you in your tracks, and you'll say, why is it like this here? Why don't we have it like that in the US? Sometimes it's a lot better, sometimes it's not so good. But it just gives you this more interesting perspective.
I think that's what I'm most excited about, to see things at like a different level. Now that I'm going through school, I see things architecturally different. Like I'm like, why did they do that? And I do that in America. So I'm just so excited to see what it's like in Europe. I feel like
Mhm.
that's something cool to learn about too.
Take pictures of everything.
Lots of pictures. I'm gonna bring my camera, and everything's gonna be picture perfect, I think. So now that you're on the marketing side, correct, of this design process?
Marketing plays a very large role in it, but overseeing a company means that you oversee everything that has to be done to ensure success. So let's pretend like we're a one woman show. You want to create something. You have to think about how much does that thing cost? How much are you going to sell it for? How are you going to get it to be known, which is really kind of where marketing comes in. And then once it's known, how do you do transactions? How do you negotiate sales, whether you're selling a product or a service? And then finally, once you've made that sale, how do you make sure that you execute that, you get that into the hands of the person, deliver to them what they thought they were purchasing, and then follow up and ensure that all of the customer service elements are met. Are they happy after it's all said and done? Or if they're not happy, resolve that. So that's a very comprehensive A to Z, and I'm involved in all of that. Luckily, I have a strong team that works around me. So I have someone who is a head of marketing. I have a head of HR and operations. We also have different sales team members who work in different territories. So it takes a lot to do it, but it's more than just marketing. But marketing, in my opinion, plays a role in every part of the company. It's a very important, thorough line throughout it.
Wow. I don't think I understood the depth of how broad president really is. I think when you think of president, you don't really understand that you're in charge of literally every single thing that goes into this production and the design of it. How do you think, well, in your words, how would you say you got to this point now? You started in design and then you
Mhm.
went to New York and now you're in Los Angeles. So now,
Mhm.
how would those steps influence where you are now as president of Vitra North America?
Sure. So it's a great question. When I was in design, I had to learn how to sell because as a freelance designer, you're selling your own skills. And that's actually something that I didn't learn in school. So hopefully you're learning that, because as a designer, you always have to present, you always have to market yourself. And when I was doing design work, I learned that skill, and that parlayed into being a salesperson. So I had the opportunity to oversee a furniture company. And then I kind of put aside a little bit of my design exercises. I was no longer designing interiors. I was instead using those sales skills and my business skills that I had developed as a freelancer to help a company refine their business operations, their distribution, and helping them sell. So when I moved to New York, I really did put away a lot of my interior design skills, and then started really honing in on my business development and sales skills. But it was influenced by design because I was working and selling to designers and people in the design community. So it was very important that I knew what I was talking about. So I had studied design. I knew the furniture really well. I understood the manufacturing process because I was a lover of furniture in school and I always took furniture classes. So that really parlayed into my next career, which was in New York as a salesperson, as a brand ambassador, doing different parts of the business. At one point, I was leading the marketing team. Another time, I was leading a sales team. I was with the company for 6 years. So I held a lot of different roles over those 6 years. What that did for me, because the Danish company had never been in the US before, we started it, myself and my colleagues in the US, we had to build out that business for the US market. So we had to hire an operations person. We had to hire, eventually some marketing people, more sales people. We had to figure out what's our marketing plan, what's going to be our pricing plan, what's our discounting plan, who are we going to sell to? These are all the questions that we asked ourselves over the course of the 6 years and continued evolving and refining to grow the business. As a result, my 6 years with that company was like getting an MBA, which I never did get an MBA. I went to design school instead of business school, but my 6 years with that company, Carl Hansen & Son, was business school. I learned every aspect of the business because I was involved in every aspect. And so when Vitra was recruiting for someone to come oversee their residential segment, they came to me because they could see that I had those different areas. And so now flash forward to the presidency, it's doing the same thing that I was doing for Carl Hansen & Son, evolving all the different parts of the company locally for North America. But now I'm wearing the hat of the president. And for Vitra, the president is like a managing director. So a managing director or a CEO, some other companies use that terminology. It's essentially overseeing the full operations and P&L of the company. So that's what I'm privileged to do now. And again, I'm learning every step of the way. This is my first time being a president of a company. So even though I learned a lot at Carl Hansen & Son, you're always going to get something else thrown at you that you've never done before. And anyone in any career that says they don't have challenges is probably very bored, because when you are challenged, then you're excited and you're tackling new things every day. And you have to take a leap of faith sometimes because you haven't done it before. Or you have to look to your really strong mentors or advisors to ask, how do I tackle this? So with now me moving to LA, this is another part of the journey to further grow the Vitra business in North America. I'm still overseeing the company, overseeing the territory of North America, but I decided to do it in Los Angeles for a little while because due to COVID, travel restrictions have been harder, and I need to get in front of our clients here and help the sales team here grow.
That is a lot of information. It seems like business is a very important part of design, and throughout design school, business is not really pushed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the more people that I get to interview and experience as I'm getting older, business is one thing that they are promoting and saying that this is very important. You need to get on this side of things, because realistically, I believe without business, design is not really going to get much further. There's only so much that you could do yourself without the knowledge of business. So my parents are very entrepreneurial and they have their businesses, so they pushed that onto me. So I took it upon myself to minor in business here at Mary. I think that it's very difficult. The business aspect is more difficult than the design, I think. Would you recommend to a student to take business classes for as well as design?
Yes, I think everyone in life should take business classes, no matter what your interests are. I think you are only going to further your experience, your knowledge of the workings of day-to-day life as an adult if you take business classes, not even necessarily as an entrepreneur. So let's say you go work for a company and you're not running your own company. What can business classes teach you? Well, it can teach you how to manage your own personal finances. It can teach you how to sign a contract. If you ever buy a house, you need to understand a little bit about the negotiations of a contract and agreeing to the terms of sale. These are all details of adult life that are not just valuable when you run a company. But let's put that aside. So yes, everyone should take business classes. If you want to actually start your own business, if you want to be an entrepreneur as an interior designer, or if you want to sell your services as, a freelancer, you absolutely have to have a foundation of understanding of business terminology and what to watch out for. And so if you take business classes, that'll help you to grow that area. And I would say focus a lot of time and attention now when you have teachers and mentors to guide you through that, because once you're out in the world on your own, it's definitely, for me, it was jarring to talk to my first client and discuss a contract and how do I ask for payment for my services. You almost apologize and you say like, well, I can do it for this much, and you feel sorry for asking for money, because design is something that you're probably used to sharing with the world for free because you love it. But at some point you have to also make money and you have to charge for your services. And so taking those lessons and really studying them now will help you become more confident when you're out in the world and you have that opportunity.
I think that's a very important lesson for students, especially because we wouldn't know how to promote ourselves and our work. Because like you said, you do give your design for free, realistically. You're doing all of this work and learning all of these things, but then when you leave school, how do you take that step from, okay, now I'm done with school, what do I do now? If I don't go for my master's, like, what is that next step? Am I going to get a job? Am I going for freelance? There's that like awkward phase where you're kind of stuck, I think. And that I think that's almost where I'm at, because I don't really know what my next step is.
So I would highly suggest that even if it's for a couple of months in between your undergrad and deciding to go to business school or to get a graduate degree, that you experiment a little bit with your own clients and transactions. Because doing something wrong is not failure. Not doing something at all is more of a failure. And you will absolutely learn a lesson with each transaction that you do. So even if it's a friend of a friend who just wants some help picking out something for their home or their small apartment, let that be an opportunity. Practice writing up an agreement for that person. And even say to them, this is my first time doing this. I'm going to do it for free, but here's what I would charge you, and actually agree on a trade. So even if that's all you do between undergrad and grad school, that will influence the questions and the thoughts that you bring into grad school. So you might absolutely hate that process. And that might tell you, you don't want to do that. Instead, you want to work for a designer because you are more creative than you are entrepreneurial. Maybe not. Maybe you love that process and you feel like this, you're very administrative and organized and you like writing up the contract and you like that part of planning out the schedule. And then that'll influence you to think, okay, this is what I really want to do. So when I go into grad school, I need to learn all about this part of
Um, Stephen, my professor, always says just take the opportunity, no matter if you hate it, no matter if this is what you want to do, just take the opportunity because that in itself will teach you so much more. If I
Yes.
don't like this opportunity that I'm taking, I'll know for next time, don't do
Mhm.
this again. And
Mhm.
then I will know what I want to do. So I think that is a very important. I see him smiling.
Yeah.
um, I think that that's a very important lesson as well, just to take every opportunity possible. I think that's what I will do, except I'm just a little bit stubborn because sometimes I'm like, I really don't want to do that, but I know it'll benefit me. So I think that I just have to like fight myself a little bit and take the risks.
Sure. Well, I think one thing that can help you in that decision making, or at least motivate you to do something that you might not want to do, is before taking the opportunity, really write down what is it that you hope to gain from this opportunity.
Okay.
And even if it's two things, like I want to learn this, or I want to meet so and so, or get exposure to this. And that way, if I don't know how long this opportunity could be, maybe 2 months, maybe 1 month, maybe a year, for example, your study abroad program. Before you go to Italy, write down what you want to get out of that. And that's a big endeavor. So I'm sure you could have like 3 or 4 or 5, 10 things that you want to get out of it. So that way, when you're in it, if you're halfway through and you haven't achieved any of those things, maybe you need to dig a little deeper or reach out to someone to help you to make that really worth your while. It's all about, in the world of being an adult, especially if you are in business world as an entrepreneur, it's all about getting a return on your investment. So you as a person, you're investing your time. You went to school, you're investing your time and your money. What are you getting out of that? Are you achieving the things that you set out to achieve by putting your time into this? So any opportunity that you approach, think about before you go in, what is it that you want to get out of it? And then make a plan to get that.
I think that is great advice. I don't plan for things. I then you get very frantic when nothing is planned. I typically am just going for it and hoping for the best. But I think planning will make me feel a little bit better because I am going to a totally different country that I don't really know much about. So I think
Mhm.
that expectation and then what I want to receive out of it will help me feel a little bit more settled and then will help me in my design as well.
Absolutely. And make connections. If you know going in, you really want to learn about plaster work and how that, works, for example, then reach out to some of your friends and say, do you know anyone who works in the field of plaster in Italy? Because that's one of my goals is to learn a little more about plaster, for example. And then before you even go, you can kind of build this connection, this roadmap of who you want to meet with and who you want to take time to have coffee with, and that'll just make your experience so much more fruitful.
I think the experiential part of school is what helps become a better designer. So it's not always everything that you learn. Of course, it'll help you, but the experience that you will endure as your time goes on, I think, is what really creates a better designer. Now that you have had a lot of endeavors and experiences in different fields of design, what advice would you give your student self?
Save more money. But that goes without saying, I think, for everyone. Don't be afraid to take the opportunity that pays less if it's going to give you the experience that you want to learn more about. And I think that's a really hard thing for some students. I have some friends, some design school friends who did that. They turned down really lucrative jobs with nice titles or at the firms that they wanted, that everybody else wanted to go to. They turned those down to do a little bit more of an alternative path because they had a vision that they wanted to eventually start their own company. And for some reason, they just knew if they got involved in one position, then it would take their energy and focus away from creating this other thing. And so I think that is a hard thing to do when you come straight out of school and you have this offer, because you will come out of school and you, I'm sure, will be a great, talented designer and people are going to be offering you jobs left and right, but wait for the one that speaks to your vision of what your career is going to be. Don't just take the one that offers you the best title or the best
Okay. I think that is very, because although money is not everything, many things are money driven.
Sure, absolutely.
Once out of school, especially me at 21 years old when I'll be finished with school, I feel like I will be more money driven than wanting to design. So I feel like hearing that will change my thought process a little bit more, and knowing take the opportunity, because that's all I've been taught so far is take the opportunity and don't turn down every opportunity. So once you said that, it's almost like a little bit more reassurance to take the lesser opportunity, because in the long run it probably will benefit me more than the higher paying job that I might not even have for a long period of time.
Yeah, and connections are more valuable. Personal relationships are more valuable than money and will pay dividends in the long run. So making those connections, always send a thank you note. Handwritten is best. I mean, you'll set yourself apart if you are genuine, which I can tell you are, and kind. And the people in this industry really, really do want to support and nurture new and up and coming designers. So if you are interested in what someone's doing and how they've made it in their career, or you just think they're fabulous and you're like, I want to feed off of that energy, reach out to them, invite them for a cup of coffee, and just tell them, like, I'm so inspired by what you're doing and I'd love to learn a little bit more, and treat you to coffee. And when I first moved to New York, I did that a lot because I was so, like, green, and even though I wasn't young, I was, 30 years old at the time, but I was very young to the world of design in New York. And I knew I was humble. I said, like, teach me, I'm willing to learn. And there are a lot of people that will do that for you. And if you make those connections, that's more valuable than money, because you never know when those are going to come back around to support you.
When I was in High Point, that is one thing that I learned was the most important thing. I got business cards. I did my very best to put my name out there, even though I don't really have much to my name as a designer right now because I am in school. I tried to just put myself in that position as if I had all of these great designs. I was just like, hello, here's my business card. I would love to have yours. And then I did send the thank yous, and I think that is the point that we need to be taught, to put ourselves out there and step out and be the nicer person. Because when you're not, the opportunity will now close its door.
Absolutely.
Fortunately. But I guess fortunate for the people that care enough.
Yeah, the nice person stands out. The person who does what you explained that you did at High Point, that stands out in a crowd, and it's memorable. And especially sending a thank you note, like it's such a deposit of goodwill. Like, someone will remember that for a long time. So these are simple things that you can do to make yourself memorable. And I noticed at the start of this call that you apologized for yourself before we even got into the call. And so you just did it again. You said, I don't have any designs to show, but I put myself out there. Take the first part of that sentence off, because it doesn't matter if you don't have any designs to show. You are something very special and you're breaking into the world. And what do they know? You could be like the next big Kelly Wersler, and you have to have that confidence.
Thank you. That is so inspirational.
So no apologies. Unless you're late, then you apologize.
Okay. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. I think I'm a lot harder on myself. I don't give myself enough credit as a designer.
We all are.
Right. You're your worst critic.
Absolutely.
That's something that I've definitely come to notice throughout design school. I came into the school, it's like, I'm so confident, I could do this. And then I had to cry in my professor's office because I was like not thinking that this was for me, because it was just so much to absorb at once. But I don't think I could do anything else but this. I feel like I'm meant to be here. And this interview, every time I do an interview, it reassures my faith in design and just makes me so motivated to do more things. And I feel like everything that you have said and all the advice that you have gave is amazing advice for students that are going to listen to this and come out of college and just they're going to have all of these ideas. Personally, I think that these are so motivating. I listen to them and I'm like, oh my god, now I have so many opportunities.
Yes.
Everything that you have said was very valuable, and I think I will take that with me for the rest of my design career.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm happy to give the advice. I mean, it's just lessons that I've learned along the way, things that I've noticed have made a difference. And I wish I had the opportunity to speak and meet with a lot of different people in their careers when I was a student. I remember meeting two professionals. We had a professionals practice class, and at different points, a professional would come in and talk about their journey and their road. And that was very memorable. But the more, the better. You know, the more people you can hear their story and see their experience, the better. And you live in a different world than I lived in when I was in school. There was no social media, there wasn't Instagram. So now you can really connect with people. I mean, slide into their DMs. That is, I have, Stephen, that's how Stephen got in touch with me, is through Instagram. So it really is a powerful connecting tool, and use it like a marketing tool. So less shots of partying and pictures of like getting drunk, and more pictures of your work, and you'll just become an exposed designer. People will see you, they'll notice you.
That is very good advice. I did just create a design account for myself, so that's where I've been posting all of my projects for the semester, and I think that it's just my family following me right now, but it's definitely getting attention, so it's making me feel better. I'm excited to see where that goes. And when I'm in Italy, the pictures, I'm just so excited to post these pictures. Yes, I'm just very excited for all of that.
You'll have a great time in Italy, and you'll have lots of content to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome.
Thank you for yes.
Absolutely. Thank you for your questions, and I hope that you have a beautiful journey finishing school, and send me your information so I can follow along on your Italian journey. I'm very jealous.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Melissa, for all of your amazing advice and for your time today. If you like this week's episode, like and comment and follow in next week as the conversation continues from a student's perspective.